Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Enhancing Border Security with i2 TextChart. I'm excited to give you some information about TextChart, and we'll be walking through a demonstration and how to use TextChart today. So my name is Zach Buse. Pleasure to be here. I'm the U.S. Federal Account Lead on the National Security Team for i2 Group, and I'm joined here today with Mike Mumma. Mike?
Good morning, Zach. I'm Mike Mumma. I'm the technical architect and software architect for i2 Group for North America. I work with Zach and help our clients understand our capabilities, but also work with security and deployability and accreditation issues as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So just for everyone's situational awareness, this webinar will be recorded today. We'll be able to send it out to you and then others, of course, so they can view it at a later date and time. Next slide, please.
I'm working on it. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Perfect.
That'd be the first slide. That'd be the last slide.
Yeah. So just as I talked about earlier, we're going to be, really diving deep into TextChart today. And what's really wonderful, as of January 1st, 2025, TextChart is now bundled with your i2 Analyst Notebook licenses. So if you have an active subscription today of i2 Analyst Notebook, you can email our fulfillment team, or if you don't already have that license in your download or your inbox, you can email our fulfillment team at i2 Group fulfillment .com/fulfillment. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box, though, that email, so you have it. And what's nice about that is you do have access to all the technologies that we're going to be talking about today. We'll not be talking about TextChart Premium. What you do have access to is our TextChart Standard license. Very powerful, desktop deployed, so you can build your collections and begin the natural language processing extraction of your unstructured text documents immediately. So let's jump into what TextChart exactly is. So it's going to, once it's downloaded, it's a plugin. It's going to pop up on your analytical dashboard there in the center. And you're going to be able to import unstructured documents. So what are unstructured documents? I've got a list of them there that might be of interest to you, that you may have run across in your day-to-day business. So intel reports, interrogation reports, open source media that you find, suspicious activity reports, could be subpoena records. You're in law enforcement. You've got a 100-page subpoena record that you don't want to read through, but instead you want to import it into an i2 TextChart collection. And what the collections are going to do is it's going to use natural language processing, NLP, against those unstructured documents. It's not structured, right? These aren't rows and columns. These are unstructured documents. This is the information or the narrative that is in so many of those intelligence reports. And what it's going to do is what you can see there on the screen is extract the entities, links, and properties from those documents very quickly. It's going to color code those documents. So it might have red as your people that it extracts. It's going to have blue as the businesses that it extracts. Might have a green, which represents a geolocation place. So there's a geo capability within TextChart that gives you the ability to push those entities onto a map, so you can see where they are location-wise. And what's really wonderful about this is that once those entities have been extracted, it's not just the entities, but also the links. So the relationship, who is related to who is the owner of a particular business, right? Since it's using that natural language processing, it's also extracting those links as well as those properties, those descriptors that's within those documents. You can easily right-click and send those directly onto the chart. So it's a very fast way of automating that entire process. I know when I was an intelligence analyst, I used to have to, read my intelligence reports. I'd write down on a separate piece of paper what were the entities most relevant to me, or I'd have to copy and paste them into i2 and then create objects using the palette manually, or I'd have to tag each one of those objects, tag the link, and then push it into the database for it to be recognized as proper entities within my investigation. This is doing is it's doing it automatically for you using NLP. There's also some really good entity resolution across your documents or your collection that you're going to see today. So if Zachary Buse or my colleague Mike Mumma shows up in a collection of documents, it's going to resolve your name. So when you push Zachary Buse into the chart, you can right click and see all of the times where Zachary Buse has been identified against that collection of documents. It's a really great way of automating this intelligence lifecycle, but also helping you so you don't have to spend so much time reading all of those different text documents. You can just push them directly into a collection and then send them to your chart and begin your investigation.
Sure. Today we're going to do a demonstration of TextChart in running in Analyst Notebook, and it's the version that is available as a part of Analyst Notebook at this point that Zach was talking about. So we'll look at creating a collection of documents and analyzing those documents, building an intelligence picture, and then we'll sort of transition from that to hunting through those documents for patterns and that kind of thing. And then I'll give you some tips and tricks making things work better. How to do that. So, of course, questions can be done throughout. So,
yeah. And if you do have some questions, please put them in the chat box. I'll be monitoring the chat box.
Thanks, Zach.
Yep.
So the topic today, just to get us started in the right frame of mind, then we'll jump to the demo, is the Cartel del Golfo, the Gulf Cartel. It's a cartel that's been around even since the 1930s. So just to throw this up here so you sort of get into the mood of thinking about that. So we're going to do an analysis of this cartel. So I'll go ahead and switch over to the demonstration. There we go. Zach, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. So we're going to start with Analyst Notebook 10.1, the most recent version, and TextChart version 10.1. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import data in. We're going to start with some structured data just to give us a basis for the investigation very quickly. And so I'm going to import this data, some data about the Gulf Cartel. I might have gotten this from the FBI or a sister organization. And I want to look at it to start my analysis on this cartel. And you'll see we see a group of people linked together in a lot of cases with the name, the role, and their current status. Whether in terms of if they're deceased or if they've been released or they're still incarcerated, those kinds of things. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little. I'm going to use a new capability from Analyst Notebook 10.1, which allows me to immediately hide the attributes to sort of make it a little easier to see. And then I'm going to do a organization arrangement. And finally, I'm going to apply some conditional formatting to make it a little more clear what we're seeing here. So we'll go ahead and apply that. So this is the information we have from the structured data so far, right? We have some leaders here, and some reporting structure, not too much, some folks that are not linked and that kind of thing. And so now we're going to go ahead and start with TextChart. So TextChart, again, this is TextChart 10.1. It's right here when you have it installed in the home ribbon. And I'm going to go ahead and go to TextChart Collections. I'm going to create a new collection for this cartel and this investigation. And I'm going to add 3 files. So I can add a directory tree and it will add all the files, text files, or I can add files themselves. So it will support virtually any kind of file that has text in it. So obviously .txt files, but also Microsoft Office files and PDF format files that have text in them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add these 3 to the collection. You see I've got the collection here. And you'll see that these 3 documents that are in this collection that I added, are light blue. So when I hit process collection, it's going to process these documents, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So processing takes a few seconds, as you'll see, not very long. The first document, document 0, I guess you could say, takes a little longer as it loads the analytics. In particular, it's going to load the geolocation data, which is a fairly large database with locations for most of the places in the world at a sea level. And now it's going to go through it and process the documents. See, it's not too bad for 3 documents, and it's not linear as well. It'd be a lot quicker, for 10 documents or 100 documents. It wouldn't be, maybe, it'd be quicker. So now I have the process documents. You can see that the little document icons are dark blue. If I click on one of them, I can see, what the document is and how it was processed. So this is an intelligence report about Juan Garcia. And you can sort of see that the format of the report that we received. And you can also see the colored tags that Zach was talking about. The red tag is people, right? So when I tag on Juan Garcia, I can see Juan Garcia's tag, not only once, but each place where he's tagged. And not as, each individual Juan Garcia is a separate person, but it recognizes that's one person. So when I tag on him, when I click on him, I see a baseball card view of Juan Garcia. Some information about him that it picks up from the name and how it's used in linguistics, as well as the instances that he's referred to. So not only is he referred to as Juan Garcia, but he's also referred to as his and him as well. This is really important because, as you'll see in a second, when we establish links, his also represents Juan Garcia as well. So if I go ahead and look down the baseball card view, I can also see the links that were extracted. So if I click on person to organization, I can see the places where he's linked. If I click on them, I can see the links and that were extracted as well. If I go back here just a second and see, I can also see the other all the organizations, all the people, all the addresses that are and all the events that were extracted, and I can click on them and see them in the document as well. You can also see all the links in the document as well. So if we go back to Juan Garcia, one thing we can do is, if we can also interact with the chart. So I can click on this relationship between Juan Garcia and the Cartel del Golfo, and I can add that to the chart. So I can send it to the chart. So if I say send to chart, I can see it automatically creates a relationship between Juan Garcia and the cartel. And it creates a link for each kind of relationship or each instance of the relationship that it's found. So I can now click on Juan Garcia on the chart, and I can actually go back to TextChart. So I can say, show in documents, hey, where did that Juan Garcia come from? And it shows me not only the document I was originally in, but the other documents as well. So it again merges across documents as well. I can do the same thing with the links. So you can see that there's a link between the specific link between Juan Garcia and the cartel that I clicked on there as well. Zach, do we have any questions before I move on?
I'm monitoring the chat now. No, there's no questions quite yet.
Okay, thanks. So in addition, I can go and click on this intelligence report for Dario Antonio, and I can see this report happens to be in Spanish. So we can ingest over 200 different languages and extract the data from the languages. TextChart automatically detects what kind of what language it is, and will extract it in the native language. So I can see here in the same way Dario is extracted, even though this is a Spanish language intelligence report. In addition to that, and this would work whether it was Portuguese from Brazil or maybe Urdu or Arabic or Chinese or Russian Cyrillic. It works for all those languages, and like I said, 200 languages. If I can also do what we call a gloss, which is a translation, a basic translation of the document to English. So in this case, we've got the Spanish language intelligence report, and it shows me side by side with that a very basic English translation. I should digress here a second and say all of this is running on the local workstation. None of this requires network connection to do. So you've got a translator from over 200 languages to English available to you at any time. The translation is not perfect. It's a pretty literal translation. I like to say it's good enough to get the gist of the report, determine if it's important enough, and potentially if you want to go get a maybe more qualified translator to extract it as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to go ahead and add Dario to the chart. And I'm also going to add this gentleman as well. So these guys are over here. I'm going to zoom in on them and we're going to look at them a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to show you from a TextChart perspective is the ability to do an expand directly from the documents. So I might have these documents on my chart and I want to find out what they're related to based on the TextChart analysis. So I can right click on them and say TextChart expand and tell it, hey, I want to expand and what I want to expand. Tell me the addresses, the organizations, the people that are linked to these people. And I'm skipping the events. Don't tell me the events because there's a lot of events. Don't care about that right now. I'll zoom out a little bit and you can see that it's extracted quite a few links from these three folks that we started with. I'm going to go ahead and apply the conditional formatting again so we can sort of see what's going on a little better. And you'll see a couple of things. What I like to do is I like to give a blue highlight to entities and links that come from the documents. So what this says on my chart, if I zoom out a second, is anything that's light blue, I'll be able to extract that directly to go back to the documents associated with it. These things here that are originally from the structured data aren't light blue. I can't go back to any document for that because I don't have the documents, the unstructured documents. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up just a little bit. I'm going to select all because I know that there's a bunch of organizations in there we don't care about, particularly things like, U.S. Government agencies and things like that. And I'm going to deselect the cartels because we're interested in that. And then I'm going to organize based on the cartels. And I'll give myself a little more space here. So at this point, we have a hierarchy for the Sinaloa cartel, the Los Zetas cartel, and the Golfo cartel from the intelligence reports with our principals and also with locations as well. So, but what we see is, well, that's not that, that didn't, we still have two sets of data because I see that my principals down here from the structured data. I also see them up here from the unstructured data, and they're not linked together. So the next thing I'm going to do is to merge that data together. So I'm going to run an analytic under the Analyze tab called Find Matching Entities. And so this is, you can tune this, and there's a lot we could say about Find Matching Entities, but it's pretty easy. In most cases, you can just run it. And what it will show me is, hey, there's a bunch of duplicates on this chart, or what look like duplicates. The first set is probably almost certainly a duplicate. The names are exactly the same. Other criteria is the same. As I go down a little bit, some of them are a little bit less obvious. For example, Jose Cordoba and Jose Cordoba Quinto. We can make an assessment about whether they are applicable or not. And you can see the match strength. This match strength is a little lower. But I'm going to go ahead and assume, since we know they all relate from an intelligence perspective to this the Cartel del Golfo, I'm going to go ahead and merge them all together. So I selected all of them and I'm going to merge them. What you see now is that there's interlinking between the structured documents that we have and the unstructured documents that we had. So now I'm going to go ahead and reorganize, clean up a little bit. And you can see I have a network of the Cartel del Golfo, the Sinaloa and the Zetas cartels connected to the people both the people that are that came from structured data and also people came from the unstructured data. And then one other thing I can do is I can actually, let me clean this one up in this America. The next thing I can do is that the locations, one thing that TextChart will do is if it recognizes a location, it's someplace it knows about, and as I mentioned, it's got a fairly big database of places, it will actually add the latitude and longitude to those places. So what that means is that I can select these things and add them to chart, and anything with a lat long latitude and longitude, which was added by TextChart, will immediately be added to the map. So I can see that the locations that came out of those intelligence reports, and I can see how they're linked to this this data. So if I go ahead and so we'll just look a little bit closer at the data so that we can see what's going on here. So you can see this location here is a birth location for Dario Antonio. We also have familial relationships for him, as well as organizational relationships and that kind of thing. So, it really got a nice combination. You can also see by the differences in color, the blue color are the data, the intelligence that came from the documents, and the black color came from the structured data. So you can see we truly have fused this intelligence. I'm going to pause there a second. Zach, do we have any other questions?
No, there's no questions yet, but this is really fantastic, right? So being able to fuse structure with unstructured data quickly. And you did, click on a couple of unique capabilities found within the analytical ribbon that I think are important to highlight: conditional formatting, fine matching entities or fine matching records, easily right clicking and pushing things onto the map. So this is important as we think about that analytical life cycle and how it's, we're helping I2, fuse that data together to make some sense out of this visually.
That's great. Thanks, Zach. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add additional documents. So a lot of times what will happen is you'll get a whole bunch of documents. In one case, we got 200 documents from CBP, 200 intelligence reports. And we didn't know where to start, right? So we had 200 documents. We certainly will read and analyze those documents over time as a team, but we really wanted to get initial analysis and understand, what the structure of the data within those documents were. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do a smaller example of this, add another set of documents. You can see the new documents I added are not processed yet. I'm going to go ahead and process those additional 4 documents. Again, you can easily, I did 4 more, it could be 200 more. I'm going to use this as a reason to look at these other, under the collection, these other 2 areas here. One is the entities. So these are all the entities, not for an individual document, but for the entire collection. So I can see for the entire collection, here are all the organizations, for example. And if I right click, I can actually say, show me in the documents where those organizations are. And you can see now for Cartel del Golfo, I actually have 4 or 5 documents. I think that 6 documents that, that cartel was extracted from and fused to. And then the same thing with the links as well. And you can search through these as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just dump them all to the chart. So all the entities and all the links, I'm going to add them to the chart. And then I'm going to format this. I'm going to clean it up just a little bit. Again, we don't care about the events, so we'll delete those and I think there's some bank accounts. We don't care about those. We're trying to get a general picture for what's going on here. And now I'm going to go ahead and do some organization. And what I'm going to do is, again, use the analysis tab. So this is very similar. This is actually a fairly simple link chart you might get. When we ran this against the 200 CBP intelligence reports, we got a much bigger network than this. And so, but Analyst Notebook has a great set of facilities for sort of picking apart these big networks and understanding where we want to focus. And I want to just sort of show how that can work if you have a big set of documents you're using with TextChart. So once you send them the chart, you go to the Arrange tab. There's several capabilities you could use for this, including, of course, the mapping, which I showed, and social network analysis. But I'm going to use list most connected. And I'm going to say, hey, tell me all the entities with the most links. I can immediately see the entities with the most links here, as well as the direction of the links. I can click on any set of links here and see the links for each one of these, or I can click on the individual people to see the individual people, or entities, I should say. Some of them are people. I can also highlight with colors the top 10, so you can sort of see where they are. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the top four of them, excuse me. And I'll add one more. So these ones associated with the cartel that look interesting. I'm then going to use another capability which I have them selected, which is called Find Connecting Network. And I'm going to say, hey, for those selected most connected people, is there a network between them? So I added those people and I said, Find Network. Sure enough, there's a network. So the next thing I'm going to do is expand out one more. And then copy it to a new chart. And then the final thing I'm going to do, just to make it look a little cleaner, is I'm going to merge those links so we just see a single link, just so it's easier to look at. So what we have there is so what we have here is a network to start with, right? Without having any knowledge of how that cartel is working, how the people are working, I can sort of see the centers of interest there that I can focus on. I can zoom into them. I can understand the relationship between them, and that kind of thing. I can immediately see I don't have any connections directly between most of these cartels. If you see the three cartels here, but they are linked via key people and that kind of thing. So that would be the way that we would hunt through the documents. I'm going to pause there for a second. Zach, do we have any other questions?
Not yet. I have been adding some comments in the chat box, just highlighting some of the workflows that Mike's showing you today.
Okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do is and the last thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to give you some tips and tricks. So when you get Analyst Notebook installed, you get TextChart installed, you may encounter some things you need to deal with right off the bat. And so I want to just sort of prepare you for that a little bit. So I'm going to create a new chart from a template. You may be using your own custom template, or you may be using the standard template, but I'm going to go ahead and use a military template. So it's a template that hasn't been sort of corrected for TextChart. So one of the problems you may see is if I use TextChart, go ahead and go back to Juan Garcia, and I add something from TextChart to the chart, you may see that the icon is off. So that's because there's a bit of a mismatch between in this case, the chart template I'm using and the ontology that TextChart uses. So there's a couple ways to fix that. The main way to fix that, the easiest way to fix that, is to go in and edit the chart properties for the representations, and then go down to the bottom. This is a little fast. Maybe I have to go back and watch this recording a couple times. It's pretty straightforward, though. I just right-clicked on the back of the chart to go to chart properties, and then I went to entity types, and down at the bottom I can see that the most recent added ones, which is in this case, the TextChart one, you can see that the issue I have is Juan Garcia doesn't show as a person icon. It shows in this TextChart, generic icon. So what I can do is actually just go into the property for that particular type of entity, and I'll go ahead and just do person. And then that corrects him. If I had other things, I could have, in other words, events, organizations, those kinds of things, they would also be down at the bottom of that text chart edit chart properties, and I could have fixed them that way. I will use this as a jumping off point to say there is a next level of power here in terms of mapping, so you can map the entities and links, basically the ontology that TextChart uses, to the ontology that your charts and your chart schema use. I'm not going to show that today, just to allow you to recognize that it's there. And then the other thing we have here is Service Manager. This allows you to start and stop the underlying TextChart service. I really don't think you need to use that. If you want to reset TextChart, probably the easiest way to do it is just to start and stop. Start and stop TextChart. Start and stop Analyst Notebook, because TextChart starts automatically with Analyst Notebook. So then the final thing you might want to do is, I might want to, you can certainly in these collections, I can right click on a collection and remove a document from the database entirely, or I can remove it just from this view. I can actually remove the collection itself by right-clicking on it, that kind of thing. But sometimes you'll want to clear your data completely out of TextChart and start over. This will happen after a while, probably, if you're working on it. So the way to do that is to close Analyst Notebook. Closing Analyst Notebook will stop TextChart, as you'll see. You see TextChart is stopping as well. And then, and this link is in the description. So you can follow the description in the PowerPoint, which I'm going to show you here in a second, to find this file. But there's a file in Program Files, TextChart, which allows you to manage the TextChart configuration. And I don't think you need to mess with almost any of this, except for I think that a normal user, especially when you're playing with TextChart to begin with, you're going to want to start over and clear it out. You can go to table operations and clear out all the data that was there. So if I go ahead and clear out the data and say yes, I can clear out the data. At that point, when I open Analyst Notebook, the collections and the documents that I had in TextChart will be gone, and I can start over. The last thing I wanted to say, which I neglected to say, is there's a final way to sort of fix the icons coming out of TextChart if they're not coming the way that you want them to come, in addition to changing the mapping manually. And that's by starting your chart with a Risoka-specific chart template. Again, in the PowerPoint, which I'll show here in a second, there's information about how to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and show briefly how to do it. So if I wanted to start with a Risoka-specific template, which is going to work all the time for the icons from TextChart, I can say Start New from Template, and I'm going to add a TextChart specific template. And where that is, again, this will be in the PowerPoint, is it's in as you can see, it's in Program Data TextChart Conf. Nobody needs to remember that. Who's going to remember that? But you just need to keep the link handy. It's also in the documentation. And then I start my TextChart, and I create my new chart with that. And this chart will always work with the TextChart. So that's the other way to do it. If you want to, then you can actually save this, create a new template based on this Risoka template that you have, and you can actually make it the standard template. Then it will be these configurations will be available all the time to use TextChart. Again, these things are in a documentation. I just wanted to have you have some awareness that either, either playing with the template that you start with or editing the chart properties or ways you can deal with any issues you might have with the icons associated with TextChart. And that concludes my demonstration for TextChart. Do we have any final questions, Zach?
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. No, I don't see any additional questions coming through, but you can always reach me if you've got some follow-on questions at Zachary, ZACHARY .Buse, BEUS at i2group.com. I'll put that in the chat box as well. And I think we'll be sending out that information after this to those that attended today's webinar. I appreciate your time. And if there are no additional questions, we'll close this webinar out a little early. Here are some resources documents as well. So I2 Analyst Notebook, docs, and I put some of these also in the chat box for you. And here's our contact information. Great. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.